call the extending of the hearing to order. This hearing is based on the property at 2355 48th Street, parcel number 5202779. For the record, all of the formalities based on what we needed to declare insecure, unsafe, or structurally defective or unfit for human habitation has been done. A request to have a hearing was presented by the homeowner. We received that letter on February 26th. We set that meeting for March 12th. She wasn't present at the March 12th meeting. We did read a letter from her. At that point in time, we extended the hearing to June 11th. On June 11th, we extended again the hearing for 5/20 today, August 27th. So we are continuing with that hearing. No one from the property is present, and I know we have pictures in front of us of the befores and afters based on the progress of what has been done so far. And I will now defer to the chief, who has received some communication from the property owners regarding some of the process. So would you be so kind as to read those?
Yeah, so last night I got an email about 11:30 at night saying, sending some updated pictures, because we were out like Thursday or Friday and there wasn't a whole lot of activity, and then they did do some work over the weekend. And this is what she said. I asked her two questions. I said, "Do you have a plan for the building, and why aren't you able to come to the meeting?" And she explained, at the last hearing, my husband had been working at a summer camp maintenance manager, and he had his last full week of camp last week, and we'll have more time to work on, as she called it, a chicken coop this fall. We're hoping to have it rebuilt by the end of October or early November. I have a 4 o'clock meeting in Warren, Ohio today that I cannot cancel, and I will not be able to attend the meeting. And that was from Lisa House.
Well, I can tell you. If there's anything else on that, Chief?
No, I mean, just basically explain it, she gave the pictures, kind of explained why, and then she did say something to the fact in that other hearing about her husband was going to be tied up through the summer months, and that's all I really know about it. I haven't had any phone call with her, that's the only email I got from her.
Yeah, so, the fact that she's not here today, given we set this meeting well in advance, and she agreed with doesn't sit well with me, so that's not acceptable. And unless somebody's dying or has died, the world's coming to an end, she needed to be here this evening. I don't see nothing worth serious effort or merit, quite frankly, to say, hey, we'll give you another extension. Clearly, it's not the utmost of a priority, and I feel the underlying sentiment is, well, hey, we'll buy time, and they'll deal with us accordingly. That's not how it goes. This clearly didn't happen overnight. It's clearly not getting remediated within a reasonable timetable. This isn't something I take lightly, and I'm sure the rest of the board doesn't, especially given other similar circumstances where we have had willing parties, and we've clearly demonstrated a willingness to work with somebody. To know that there's very little visibly completed, to me it would infer that, well, we got to hurry up and do a little something before this next meeting, at least show there was something. It just doesn't cut it. There needs to be something more significant for me, and with that note, I'll defer any or hold any further comment. So, John, you may make
So officially, whatever we would decide, we have 30 days after the hearing to formally make that decision. So we could, this is just what I would throw out because I just counted, our September 24th meeting. Just make sure of that. That's less than 30 days. We could extend this, well, now, if we would vote tonight, we can kind of give it a thought of what we want to do, and then at that meeting, we could actually start that 30 days.
30 days from
Does it start
24th, 30 days from today.
30 days from today. We have 30 days, once the hearing, if we do not extend the hearing tonight, we don't formally extend the hearing to some date, then we have 30 days after tonight to make that decision formally. I guess maybe I said that wrong, I should. So, or if we make that decision tonight, we don't have to worry about the 30 days. And we start the formality process.
Did you go out and look at this, Tom? Who goes out and look at this?
That's actually
Okay,
under.
that was her, okay.
Yeah.
Then, did you
The
see,
Tom went too.
have you seen anything that looked like remotely that it's been a change?
I physically went there today,
Does it look
because many,
different?
the zoning went out along with our inspector, like Thursday, I think it was. Wednesday or Thursday, and took pictures, and there was hardly any activity, so most of the work that's been done has been done in the last 3 or 4 days.
I would agree with trustee Hawes. Now they're trying to pacify us and look like they hurry up and got something done when they've had all this time to look at these get more than that done. If you're gonna make us happy, then we need to see more than that. And then why didn't we hear from the very beginning that, you know what, my husband is in camp and look, give me some time, I'm really gonna get this done. We never heard a word about that till now. And it's like, fall is coming, weather is coming, and so how long is this gonna stretch out? And it doesn't look like they've even made an attempt to do anything. Now, we work with anybody, but I don't see anything that's even been done. And you're gonna wait 2-3 days ago and go out there and move a couple things and say, well, we did something now. So,
I mean, so I physically went there today after she emailed me, and, I mean, you're right, there has not been much work done, but she did do some, you know, I have to give her credit for that, trying to get that done with her, if her husband has been away. But, was some attempt to do something today. I honestly think at the end, she's gonna have, it'll all be torn down, because I don't think structurally, there's much there.
there's
I
nothing
mean,
there.
I actually walked inside of it,
Yeah.
there's 4x4 posts that's actually holding that building up. And I think once they actually tear off all the skirting, they're gonna find they're gonna have like 8 sticks left that are holding this thing up. So, the end result is they'll probably have a cement pad with a few poles on it. I don't think they can do a whole lot with it, but, I mean, obviously if they're tearing it down, they're getting rid of the problem, I guess, if that's what
Right,
it comes
they're
down.
tearing it down.
You know,
That can't be.
I mean, I suppose it's possible they could repurpose some of the boards, reuse it in the process, but I don't know. But I agree with you, you know, but she did make mention of not having a lot of time this summer, but she was gonna try to work on it, and obviously that's what they got done, so.
And I think she knew about this meeting how long ago?
Well, since
I mean, last time she was here.
March,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I understand, but all, unless this was something that just popped up and she could have
June
said,
11th. She knew June 11th.
We're over 2 months.
Yeah.
So this
We have
other
not
one just
changed
happened to
today.
pop up, she took that over precedence over this. And she's not here. I mean, I would at least been here and saying, hey, please, I'm trying, but she didn't even come to tell us, which is, it's a no-show. She said 2 months.
I don't disagree with that, I just, you know.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, even if the husband's still working, I mean, that's one of those, whether you're at home on the weekend or something, I mean, I get it, nobody wants to work around the clock, but you've got a situation that you've allowed to exist for some time, and even now when attention is drawn to it to take action, I can't see waiting another 30 days myself, that's just,
It's gonna be snowing in 90 days, I hate to say it, God forbid, but, and that thing's gonna, is it, a risk?
I mean, it's away from all the structures. I mean, it's not like right against a house or anything like that. It's obviously an outbuilding. It's more of an eyesore, I would think, probably to the people around them, you know, because it's in the back of their yard. So 2 or 3 neighbors are physically seeing that structure. I mean,
Well, the thing was there was some surgery.
Sure.
Yeah, stuff in
Sure.
that case, so just barring no further explanation, that's where I've got a hard time
I think we
stomaching
should
the,
just move forward these resolutions on unfinished, call the hearing to a close, these forward and vote on. See where they go.
Sure.
what do you think? I'm fine with that.
Anything else? Okay, I think at this time I will call the hearing for the property on parcel 5202779 to a close. Officially, we have 30 days to have our decision based on the twice extended hearing. And we may have that ready for our regular meeting. I'm going to open this swearing in ceremony, and I'm going to turn things over to our fire chief, Chuck Shaw.
Well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. We had a busy meeting already, so we kind of squeak all this in here tonight. So I have a good crowd tonight for our promotion. We had a retirement in the fire department, and it's kind of like a domino effect. We kind of keep moving down. We move people up through the chain to fill all the spots. So we had a vacancy for our captain's position. And tonight, trustees are going to swear in Eric Wiedelbacher as a captain for our first shift. Yeah, we went through a testing process. There was 6 people applied. They had a written test, they had a situational screen testing thing that we have for first due operations for a captain or someone who's in charge of the shift. And Eric scored the best out of all that. So he's does ACLS for us. He does PALS classes for us, CE classes. He's been very involved in all that education that we have for the fire department, and he's really grown through the fire side of it here in the last 3 or 4 years. He just recently is finishing up his bachelor's degree for fire administration. So he's getting that done. So he's been a busy guy here the last couple of years. He also works at Stark State as an instructor there, and has for probably 10 or 15 years probably over there. I'm proud to introduce Eric Wiedelbacher as our next captain, and the trustees will swear you in here now. Yeah.
So this is a special honor for me because I hired Eric. So, you know, it's kind of watching your kids progress. You can't help but being proud. And I'm sure everybody that's here is feeling proud, your family as well. So I get to do the honors. Any picture taking or anything we'll do afterwards, but we'll go ahead and get started. So raise your right hand. I, Eric Wiedelbacher,
I, Eric Wiedelbacher,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution,
I will support the Constitution,
laws and resolutions
laws and resolutions
of the United States,
of the United States,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
and Plain Township.
and Plain Township,
And I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge my duties as a captain
discharge my duties as a captain
of the Plain Township Fire Department
of the Plain Township Fire Department
protecting life and property,
protecting life and property,
respecting the rules,
respecting the rules,
regulations,
regulations,
and policies
and policies,
according to the best of my ability
according to the best of my ability
and understanding.
and understanding.
Congratulations. So, who's gonna pin? You gotta have somebody that. Who's gonna
His
pin?
wife's out here to
Mo's
see.
gonna pin.
Ice cream.
Yes, you're next. Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to all those in attendance. We have the agenda before us. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions from the agenda?
Under concerns of trustees, want to put railroad crossing.
And under unfinished business, I'm going to add property at 2355 48th Street.
It's on there, it's number
Oh,
one.
sorry. I don't have that. Thanks for pointing that out. Thought I was ahead of the game when you already were. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start off with is the sheriff's report. Who's going to give that tonight? Sergeant Connie? Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Before you should have the monthly report for July. Our calls for service were 1,457, small decrease as compared to 2018. We handled 63 crashes, 12 crashes with injury. Our alarms were up slightly with 121 alarms for the month. Our traffic stops were a pretty big increase with 475 for the month. Along with that, with the citations also up, 228 citations. We handled 64 arrests and 126 vacation checks. Detective Ross had 9 cases assigned, 9 new cases assigned, and was able to close 2 fraud cases, 1 with an arrest. There should also be a yearly, since we've started keeping track, and then our comparison between 2018 and 2019 that you have as well.
Just for records purposes, any correlation in the increase can reasonably be directly attributed to our increase in manpower.
Absolutely.
You know, pay more attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, our calls for service were down, but our proactive, so we weren't handling calls, but I mean, our traffic stops, a 45.7% increase opposed to last year, and a 32% increase in the citations. So, I mean, yeah, they weren't handling calls, but they were being very proactive.
And that was the goal of the levy and the additional bodies, was to be able to get to the point where we could be proactive. So that's actually really great to see.
Yeah, guys did a good job, so. Any other questions?
A friend of mine who does not live in Plain Township, but heard from a patrolman, not one of ours, the break-ins now in vehicles, I need to hear from you guys, they're using their key fob. They're actually going like this until it can actually find one and open. Is that true, or is that something that,
I don't believe so.
I've
I
heard
think
that.
each individual key fob has its own electronic ID for that car. So unless they have your car key to your vehicle, I don't,
you have to hit them? There might be a back several, yeah.
yeah, I
You
don't,
have to really drive around a lot.
I don't, I've never heard of that personally. I've never heard of that personally.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
So following along with the sheriff's report, I'm guessing everybody here lives in Plain Township, so, just a little bit of an update on our sheriff's department. You just heard a report, we get that every month. We are in constant contact with our sheriff. We're extremely proud of that service that we give back. We couldn't do it without them, but we couldn't do it without you guys either. So, we want to thank you for that. And I don't know if this was good timing or not, but we didn't realize this was all coming together, that you guys were all going to be here, because usually there's not many people at our meetings. But the sheriff is here tonight, and he's got a couple things that he wants to say. So
Sure.
Sheriff George Meyer, thanks for coming.
Good evening, everyone, and certainly is an honor to be able to be your policing service here in Plain Township. And we take that with a lot of pride and integrity, and we try to find and train the very, very best to serve here in this community. And so with that, I want to ask a couple of our deputies if they wouldn't mind coming forward. Deputy Tyler Miller and David White. These are a couple of our, your Plain Township deputies. And now, I will tell you, whenever there's something going wrong, we get to hear about it quite a bit, right? That's just the nature of who we are. But when things go right, we don't always hear about it. And in this case, I got a nice little note from one of the residents here in the township, commending these two officers for the job they did. And I'll read it to you if you don't mind, bear with me. It's handwritten to me, and it says, on July 15, 2019, our alarm system went off, and nothing we tried would make it quit. Now, I don't know if any of you have an alarm system, but if you've ever been, I've been in that situation where you try everything and you can't get your alarm, and you start to panic a little bit, right? Because, you can't get the thing to shut off. The two deputies came to check on everything and to make sure we were all right. They were terrific with all their help. With deputies like these two, Plain Township doesn't have to worry. They were Deputy White and Deputy Miller. Our Sheriff's Department has done an outstanding job. Thank you, and for all your deputies for your service. And signed, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Kinsley. And so that means a lot to us when we hear from our residents and you folks we like to hear when things are going wrong, because we like to make corrections and fix things, but we also like to hear when things are going right. And so, our employees at the Sheriff's offices are very dedicated, just like these two gentlemen here, in providing professional service in their jobs that they do each and every day. And so I have a letter of recognition for each of them, along with a challenge coin for them for their job well done. And please join me in congratulating
Good job, Sheriff. Thanks, guys. Congratulations, guys. Keep up the good work. Stay safe. Is there anybody that is not here regarding the Salvation Army issue? Anybody in the audience that is not here to speak? Yeah. So we thought we might move this up a little bit, okay? So let me just give you a little kind of a preamble of what goes on when we get complaints. Usually what happens is that a citizen out there makes some kind of direct contact either with the office here or sometimes personally with one of us. And I know Mr. Lino was kind of the contact person that came from that neighborhood regarding that Salvation Army issue. And he kept us up to speed. As a matter of fact, we were doing some things behind the scenes. So we had the sheriff working on it. We had made some contacts. So I just want you to know that in all your communication with Trustee Lino, he was definitely keeping us updated and the entire group here we're looking at some of the things that we could do to obviously rectify that problem. So it did not go unnoticed, and, but we also know that while the sheriff is here, there may be some concerns that you guys might have regarding that issue. But what I'm going to ask is that you give your name and address to the fiscal officer when you speak. I'm going to ask that specifically to, if you have something that you want to say, please feel free to say it. But I would appreciate, and you would appreciate, 10 people getting up saying exactly the same thing isn't really going to help the issue, okay? Because we'll understand it from the first one. So I don't know if you have a spokesperson for the group. Well, that's perfect. So if you would be so kind, you can come to the podium. You can stay right there, whatever you feel comfortable with. But please give your name and address
I'm
for it.
Carol Carmack, C-A-R-M-A-C-K, 4201 C10 Brook Lane in Canton.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here to speak on the issue of trash around the Salvation Army on the corner of Whipple and 47th Street in Plain Township, Canton. People unloading all kinds of things, including trash, furniture, and mattresses, when the building is closed, especially on weekends. Pickers going through the donation bins and the trash dumpster, stealing donated items and throwing things all over the place, especially on the weekends. The dumpster is often left unlocked, open, and overflowing. People actually climb into the dumpster and throw things out. The majority of the arrests that have been made are on people that have outstanding warrants. We have observed, the owners have observed drug deals taking place. When it rains or the wind is blowing, a lot of this trash blows all over the place, including the streets and properties in the area. None of it is salvageable. It all becomes trash. Their large grassy lot was not being mowed until a complaint was made. People ignore or don't see the small sign near the door asking them not to leave items when they're closed. Since the Salvation Army has been notified, and phone calls have been made quite a bit recently, some by our Plain Township trustees, we have seen some improvement. Their large grassy lot is being mowed on a regular basis, and the awful, disgusting mess on the lot is being cleaned up first thing Monday morning. We've also noticed several arrests being made by the Sheriff's Department. Please note, Cleveland is responsible for this Salvation Army building and property, not Canton. What we are asking for is for the trustees to help us as we work with you, the Salvation Army, and the Sheriff's Department together to find a solution to clean this mess up. We have suggestions and solutions. 1, close the Bethel Street entrance to the lot with fencing and landscaping. A gate could be placed there. Empty the donation bins more often. Make sure the trash dumpster is closed and locked before leaving, especially on Saturday. One dumpster does not seem to be enough. Another dumpster or a larger one needs to be added. Place locks that cannot be easily broken on all the bins and dumpsters. Police your lot and surrounding areas every day. Hire some security, perhaps part-time on the weekends. When someone arrives after hours, they can be told what not to do. If they become difficult, the sheriff can be called. This should discourage people from returning. Put a camera up along with a sign that alerts people that they are on camera. Increase the size of number of the signs, putting signs on the donation bins, alerting them that it is a crime to steal from the bins, and brighter lighting. We met with the Salvation Army's manager to let her know that we appreciate the effort she is making. However, more needs to be done, and that we would be attending this meeting to discuss the issue. We invited her to attend, and she is here. We recognize that we are all neighbors. We must be good neighbors. Perhaps in working together we can accomplish this. Thank you. And this is, I am speaking for concerned property owners around the Salvation Army building and property on Whipple and 47th Street, Plain Township, Canton. I have a copy of this for the trustees, as well, if I could give these to
Sure.
you.
That's your step. Thank you.
I also have a folder of photos that we have been taking, a lot of them, and I think you'll see what it is we're talking about. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, so we will put this, and enter this into the record of this meeting. Lieutenant Garber, I know you guys have made some arrests there.
Yes.
And I know one of the issues with you is you probably need to be called a little bit more, is that accurate?
So what I can tell you, that I think Mr. Lino originally had contacted me about some issues over there. I've spoken with a couple of the residents in there, put out a directive to our deputies assigned to Plain Township that we want strict enforcement out there. We want anybody that's on that property after hours stopped and questioned. Took a look back at our calls for service going back to May 1st. We've had 42 calls for service at that property. Over half of those have been self-generated by deputies stopping and encountering people there. And you know, certainly some of those are calls from you guys when you observe problems out there. So we're trying to increase our enforcement. As you heard the monthly report for the last month, we handled 1,400 calls for service. So in addition to those 1,400 calls, we're getting extra patrol in over there and trying to do everything we can to address your concerns with the traffic that's going on over there. Don't ever hesitate when you see these things going on, you see people there, so to give us a call. That's what we're out here for, to address those things. We try to give our officers some discretion in how they handle the matters out there. We want them to be addressed. We got a call about a lady this weekend. The deputy arrived on scene and she was actually out there cleaning up the trash and putting it back in the dumpster. So some of the folks that are going out there are doing things like that. So we're trying to address it and help you guys as best we can.
Is there a representative from the Salvation Army that's here? Would you be willing to address any of those issues, to speak on anything? If you would be so kind as to give your name and address to the fiscal officer.
Store address?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
yes.
My name is Lori Riley, R-I-L-E-Y, and the address is 4640 Whipple Avenue, Northwest. Okay, some of the issues that are addressed as far as these dumpsters go, we have gotten the bigger dumpster with a lock. The first night we had the lock on there, it was broken up with the way cut it. So they came and replaced with a larger dumpster, and they supplied us with another lock, and the next day it was cut off. So we put a very thick lock on there. They were able to take those lids and slide it under the bar that locks it, and they still opened it and climbed in. The person from Waste Management that comes and dumps that, one of the clamps that closes it had fallen off one day when he emptied the trash. They have not replaced it. So these are the things that I address with my supervisors, and from there, it's kind of out of my hands. They were asked to be here as well, but I don't see them. As far as the trash goes, we are out there first thing Monday morning, trying to get that cleaned up. I feel bad for my employees and myself, because that stuff is not pleasant when we get to it in the morning. A lot of times it's wet, moldy, stinks. We are responsible for that. The donation bins, the one that has the chutes in it, if people are able to climb in there, I may recommend grates to put up there with blocks. We had those up in Cleveland. Then to correct that, Salvation Army in Canton is run through Akron, not through Cleveland. Okay. I'm going to suggest that. Here lately, they have been emptying those donation boxes every day, except for the largest one, because that stuff has sat so long. It's gonna have to go one truck and trash. That's about it.
So you heard some of the suggestions regarding access to the property. There are 3 ways to get in and out of that.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about, in some way, after hours, having some cable or something that goes across there that would, first of all, draw their attention off the property, that you don't want anybody on that property after hours? And again, these are just things that we thought about as a possibility. It's just, it's almost an attractive nuisance. Scrappers, that's a big deal for them, and they're hitting dumpsters everywhere. But unfortunately, they're probably the ones that are cutting the lock, because they want access to that. Have you ever thought about limiting access to the property after hours in some way? Gate or cable or anything like
Those are
that?
things I've thought of, and that's things that I would have to present to Akron for approval.
Because what we would like to do, we're going to take a look at everything they have to say, and then maybe we can help with your office with some recommendations or some other issues. Because quite honestly, like some of those boxes, we've actually prohibited unmonitored boxes in other places as nuisances. And I don't know that I would necessarily want to, and I'm not saying we would, I'm only speaking for myself, but I went over there Sunday, and there was a lot of stuff stacked in front of those
Yes.
boxes. And the dumpster off to the left-hand side was hanging open, and there was a lot of stuff stacked underneath the pavilion. By the way, you said it was a small sign. It's a pretty big sign that says don't drop things off after hours. So they're pretty well ignoring that. But I think we want to try to work with you guys and work with them with some kind of resolution. So I'm not saying that everything that I'm saying right now are things that we would look for, but those are all possibilities of things that we might be able to help with as well.
And honestly, from my perspective, I mean, I get it from a store aspect, there's only so much you can do, and you've got a food chain, or an organizational chart, you gotta escalate it up. If we need to be the bad guys to help you get the mission accomplished, feel free to give us management's contact information, because it'll come from the board of trustees, and if need be, they don't give you the resources, we'll let the letter come as well from our law director, and, I'm sure maybe, I don't want to commit anything to the sheriff, but I'm sure they can probably speak to some of the continued issues, because to the point, not to minimize the severity, but, when our guys are talking through 1,400 calls, as important as it is to these people, when it comes to domestics, accidents, sorry, this is lower down the food chain. Not that it's not important, but if we can help you nip it in the rear through essentially our powers.
Exactly.
I mean, some of this, I get the dumpster diving, former place of employment, unfortunately, as a construction company. Had them all the time. I would have no trespassing, folks would be prosecuted. I even had it under surveillance. It cut down on some of it. We weren't getting necessarily the dumping on the ground. However, we still got the dumpster divers, and some of these folks, they can have a cast on their foot. We used to have one that would come in religiously, and I could chase them off. Still come back, and after PD come out, threaten them. Unfortunately, they still don't care. They don't respect law enforcement. The fact that somebody's coming into some of these, I'm gonna call it a hamper, get in there. If they get trapped in there. I'm not saying that liability shouldn't be on you guys. I wouldn't think, but all of a sudden you do have a liability because somebody goes, I got trapped in here, and dehydrated, medical, and then even though they're creating the illegal act, then they're trying to turn around and sue because somebody thinks should have had better precautions in there. I just think, let us be the bad guys if it comes down to it, and pushing the issue. Whether it's a letter from our board on what we need to see with the defined timetable, because no offense, we love our residents, we're here, but none of us want to be talking about this in 30 days, 60 days. And I mean, to your point, who the hell wants to go out and clean up that stuff? I mean, that's just, it's atrocious, and unfortunately, some of those folks know full well, even when they're probably dumping that stuff there, that there's no way that it's usable before it's even rained on, which is wrong, but.
We've even had bags, their regular home trash. Food.
Yeah, I think there's a perception that some people are dropping things off because they honestly and truly believe they are helping in some way. That it's opportunistic for other people, so, and this is unusual, by the way, so I apologize for not saying this earlier. This is citizen action here at the best level, because we have a large crowd, but I think you guys had one spokesperson who, by the way, has been working with the business, contacted them so that they're also here, contacted us. So that's kind of unusual. We don't always see that. So I'm pretty optimistic. I think we're going to be able to help you, help them, which will certainly help us. So, Sheriff?
I'm sorry. I just want to add to this, there's some great, first of all, thanks to the group for the work you've been doing. Your spokesperson was eloquent in her presentation of your position, and I hope you see that we've been trying to help work on this problem as well. And apparently we're to a point where things aren't getting any better, right? And you want to make things better. And so I would make a recommendation to the board. This poor lady's caught in the middle. She's a store manager. You need to go to the corporate in Akron, find out who the CEO is, and I'd be happy to draft a letter along with you to say these things need to be addressed on behalf of these folks. One thing that helps us, that I know we don't have there, are security cameras. If we had security cameras, it helps us in follow-up investigation. We have these all over the county, obviously, that help us in conducting our investigations, and it could help us. So there are three pillars to this. We want to deter this from happening, right? And we want to detect it when it does happen so we can go back and do our jobs. And then we want to defend the business because, you know, obviously they're there to do good for the community. And so there are those three pillars that we'd like to help be part of. And I think you guys have taken the fantastic and the right approach, and I think the township's doing a great job. But I think from a 30,000-foot view, we need to take this poor lady out of this because she's done everything she can do. We need to go to her corporate and say, this is what has to be done.
I agree.
I spoke, when someone named Sarge, the person that I spoke to, were they high up in your office or someone higher up? Because I did speak to an individual who knew about the situation. And one thing in the light, first of all, I gotta give praise to our zoning. They were there, and you guys communicated well with them. Vince, Tom, worked together as a team and made this all good. From Monday on, we're clean. It's the weekend. Our guys aren't out there on the weekend. So that's the huge problem. But on Monday, you guys clean it up. You do everything you're supposed to do. So there's no issue with us as far as weekends. We're sorry, we're not working on the weekend. The individual I spoke to.
But even if we are, we still have to give advance notification, so they would be compliant with that. I just want that.
Yeah, the individual I spoke to enlightened me a little bit, and this is what they said. We're losing merchandise ourselves. There are needy people that are losing things that are needed for them. And some of the people that are showing up there are selling it at Hartville's flea market.
Or Plato's Closet.
So this is where this is getting sad. They're looking for their selfish reasons to raid these, and then you guys are stuck on the weekends. I would hate on the weekends have to look at that. And you guys are stuck, because Monday on, our guys have done, and you have, everything's done, it's the weekend. That's the problem we need to do. I did ask, or spoke to that individual, and asked him about cameras. They said they thought about doing cameras, but it sounded like a money issue from what they were saying. So,
We've done them here at recycling centers and they're not expensive.
and I said, you know, this group is gonna come to a meeting, and they're here. And this may make the newspaper, which it probably will. And I said, you don't wanna get a bad rep, because really, the Salvation Army is the only one that I trust. Because I do give to them, because they do say what they need. Because I found out that happened as, when I was a bailiff, the only individual that came this person being kicked out was the Salvation Army. They tried every other entity, and the Salvation Army showed up and got this person room and board. So from then on, I've always supported them. So Salvation Army is good, they're good people. We just need to help them. They've got an issue. I would hate the weekends to have to look at that stuff. And I wish there would be, but it's, again, Sheriff even said, we're not picking on you because you're doing everything, we're really nice that you're here. On up needs to be looking at this. They talked about money issues, cameras, there were things that we threw out there. It's just, now, how do we put it together? And the sheriff just said, right, how do we put it together?
You got it.
I just want to speak next, whenever.
Is there anything else you
You've
can?
been great, thanks for
Yeah,
And that's
Thank you for
cute
coming, by
that-
the
yeah,
way,
that
too.
she came
That's
down.
really-
Yeah, that's,
Nice.
you know, when we get this kind of cooperation from people, it's, we don't always get that, so thank you again. Your name and address?
Tom Farrar has a point.
I would like to thank Ms. Rowley. We've been out there speaking with her, asking her to do things, and she has, I've never heard her complain. And she has accomplished much of what we tried to do without saying anything. Normally, we go to the person complained about, and they're upset, and all of a sudden, the anger is to the point where they don't do anything. Ms. Riley has been just the opposite, and I want to thank her, I want to thank the Salvation Army for all this. We as a township have been out to that property 64 times since October 2015. 64 times. Those are only the times that we've logged. Other times we've just driven through because we were in the area. So the township has been working at trying to get this done.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for doing it.
David Minor, M-I-N-E-R, 4806 Darlington Avenue Northwest. I'm president of North Avondale Heights Homeowners Association. We are immediately to the north of Tanny Brook. I'm well aware of Tanny Brook. My mom lived there for 5 years, so for 5 years I would walk to Tanny Brook, and that meant I walked by the dumpster in the area, and that would have been 7 days a week. Although the wintertime, I think I drove more than I walked. But anyways, our main egress to the allotment is 46th and 47th Street. We have 50th Street, which is a beautiful road by Vance Camera, but you can only do one thing at 50th Street, and that's turn right into the slow lane. You can't do anything else at 50th Street. So we're at 47th and 46th all the time. Our allotment trustees have, over the years, many times talked about the issues at Salvation Army because we drive by it so darn often. I liked the 6 or 8 different items that Tanny Brook presented. My only suggestion is that obviously a camera would be phenomenal, but I think probably the only way to really solve some things is to chain it off or gate it off, and then anybody seen in there, obviously it's a phone call because they're not supposed to be there. It becomes real obvious to everybody, including the police when they drive by. So that would be our recommendation. I applaud them going out and picking up during the week, that sort of thing. I have seen tons of stuff dumped on the weekends and tons of people sifting through all of that. And I know all that happens, we've all seen it. So I guess the question is, how do you stop it? So all I want to say is North Avondale Heights is willing to work with Tanny Brook
and to work with Salvation Army to see if we could come up with an amenable solution. Because Tanny Brook keeps an awfully nice allotment. Obviously, they're paying for that service, and they're having people come in and do that for them. I can't get anybody to pay for that service in my neighborhood because we all own our own homes, so we clean our own stuff.
Yeah.
But we have two neighborhoods that are really nice back there, and I don't want to see us go down a path of some destruction or downgrading because of some trash issues. So thank you very much, and we'll gladly work with Tanny Brook and with Salvation Army.
Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anybody else in the audience that would comment otherwise?
Sue McFarland, 4217C, Tanning Brook. I just have to say this one thing. I'm the one that probably calls the police more often than anybody. And I was working with Al. The camera, I'm going to say it once and I'm going to put it to rest because I know it's been said too many times. I had one donated. I've been there since 2000. So I was there before the Salvation Army. A previous board member donated it. It never was put up, and Lori, I'm sure, wasn't there and don't know about it. I'm not. She's been doing what she's supposed to do. But where did it go? I don't know. So that was years ago offered, and they never put it up. So I just want you to know that along with everything else. When I call the police, I always say that Lieutenant Carter said to call, and the first time I called, I never got anywhere on the non-emergency number. So I call the emergency, and the first thing I say is, it's not an emergency, but Lieutenant Carter said to call, and I have to explain it to everyone, and it's taken valuable time for them to get there, and a lot of times the people are gone before the police get there. So I don't know what we can do there, but they don't seem to know that that's happening, that we're supposed to call. So those are just a few things I wanted to say. Thanks, Al.
Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board regarding this issue? So I know you all want to go away from here feeling comfortable that we have come to some kind of resolution. So how about we do this? Following along on what the sheriff said, we as a group will make contact with the Salvation Army, the local Salvation Army. We'll get all the contact names. We're going to put a letter together basically with a little synopsis of what took place here with all those suggestions of possible resolutions. And Sheriff will take you up on your offer. We'll include, something from you as well. And we're going to send that up to the people who have the ability to maybe take action on some of this. Because again, we want to work with you guys. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate how you guys have come together sensibly and approached us that way as well. So thank you for.
I think it's important as part of that communication, not just to summarize what's going on and hey, here's some proposed solutions. We need to put deadlines in there. That we expect responses that include a detailed description of what they do plan to do to mitigate it, not, hey, we're just going to evaluate this.
Because there are some things that we can control, but we can't make them put up cameras, for example. We can't say there's any regulation, but there are some things that based on some of our zoning issues, we do have the ability to, if it's getting out of hand, we might be able to regulate.
Well, as far as for the communication, so there's no breakdowns. Clearly, Sheriff Meyer more than going to be thorough and that shared communication, but I think not only do we have a physical address, we make sure it's sent by a certified mail, so somebody's signing that it's received, or FedEx, UPS, I know it's only a couple of bucks. but then as well, if we have email addresses that we're sending it electronically as well with delivery receipt and read receipt messages, because I don't want a single excuse out of the Salvation Army Akron leadership that, well, hey, we didn't get it, yes you did, and you had 30 days from receipt to provide us with some reasonable explanation in response. I think it's critical to bring it to a close so we set realistic expectations here, especially given the fact this isn't something that's clearly new outside of what the discussion's been here, the fact of how your higher up conversation. We're not gonna have somebody call our bluff. We're going after it. We're either gonna be a good community partner, fix it, or we're gonna take more action which will not be desirable.
Would it be possible that you would copy our association and a neighboring association on communication where possible?
You can call in for a copy of it.
I'm not actually CCing specific.
You can call it under public records. We'll provide a copy of it. Yes, let's do that. We'll see that you get a copy.
Thank you. Both associations.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Again, thank you all for coming. Thanks for getting this issue solved collectively so that everybody in the end, it's win-win-win. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you want. I'm pretty sure that not too many of you will take us up on it. Sheriff, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah. It's good seeing you. I will.
If you haven't signed in, would you be so kind as to sign your name in back? So continuing along, now we're going to keep moving. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to address the sheriff? Anybody else in the audience that wishes to address the sheriff? Seeing none, you guys don't have to stick around if you don't want. So, we are going to move next to unfinished business. And I do have a resolution. It's kind of lengthy, but I'm going to read it. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Plain Township has identified the real property located at 2355 48th Street Northeast, parcel number 5202779 as dilapidated, unsafe, unsecured, and structurally defective. Whereas the Plain Township Property Maintenance Code official, the Plain Township Fire Department has conducted an on-site inspection on 8/22/2019 of the property located at 2355 48th Street, parcel number 5202779. It has been determined that the building located on said property is dilapidated, unsafe, unsecure, and structurally defective. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees will defer moving forward with the demolition of the said real property located at 2355 48th Street, parcel number 5202779 until November 12th, 2019. If the work is not completed by said date, the Plain Township Board of Trustees will move forward with the appropriate action on the above described property.
I'll second.
It's Been moved and seconded, discussion.
Number, what's that, 75 yet? Is that 75?
Yeah, we did that because that's the next meeting after the 60 days. That way we could officially then move on. Otherwise, if we said 60 days, there's no meeting in between, so we'd have to go that length of time.
As far as from discussion, I'm still gonna echo my comments that I made during our work session on this. I mean, essentially the lack of effort over a 60-day period, given 3 notifications, two continuances. Under no circumstances is this remotely acceptable as far as I'm concerned. I will note, Chief Schallenberger indicated there appeared to be a little bit of action, but it only appears within the last week leading up to it, which gives me the inclination that we better hurry up and do something before that meeting. Hopefully that'll buy us some time. I'm not buying it. 60 days, you've had plenty of time to do a lot more, and the fact that the representative left here from the last meeting with an agreed upon date, and then no-showed tonight, saying, hey, we have some other things that have come up. Listen, unless somebody's died, or the world's coming to an end, they needed to be here this evening. This isn't something to take lightly, because guaranteed if you're neighboring property, I wouldn't want to look at it. To Chuck's point, hey, there's probably questions about what is left from a structural integrity aspect. Maybe there isn't a clear imminent threat of neighboring kids running through a backyard or playing, but God forbid somebody goes through, gets hurt. I think it's a much bigger situation. So I think, quite frankly, by our November 12th meeting, this either needs to be completely down or the alternative consequences and actions that are going to happen will not be desirable nor favorable.
I think that's consensus of all of us. I think, and we initially thought about the 60 days, but we moved it into November because that's the first official date then, because that's the meeting. So I would agree with what you said. We will take action after that. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, unfinished business, that takes us to number 2.
Yes, item number 2 is we're getting ready to put out the fall newsletter, and with that, set the dates for the fall yard waste. The staff talked at our staff meeting. The issue with the yard waste is that, last year we weren't open 7 days. We can't afford to be open near that. Along with the fact that fire training needs to occur back there. That's where our training building and facility is, and then cleanup of that site too. So, in speaking with everybody involved, our recommendation is that beginning the week of October 21st, that the yard waste be open for fall, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Then that gives 3 days for cleanup, but then it also allows chief to have unobstructed training time, which is the more important use of that site. So if the board's in agreement, yeah, that's 4 solid days.
Over those dates.
Well,
Starting
the week of the
October-
21st,
Okay.
so October 25th would be that Friday, and then open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So you get the weekend and the day before and day after.
So the reality is, for the working population, it's going to tie right into the most, for the working week.
Yeah.
Knowing the dynamics of playing, know that, older community, for some of our retirees and so forth, they're simply going to have to shift their schedule to later in the week. Hey, I typically like doing this on a Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
when we're dealing with constraints, and I think what's important, and I don't want to belabor the point, these are not tax dollars. This is money that comes from the Joint Solid Waste District, which come through tipping fees that private enterprise pays every time they drive into a landfill. So anybody that wishes to make that, well, that's my tax dollars. It's not, and again, we're only one of two counties out of the 88 in the state of Ohio that only offer this, the other being Tuscaroras, which has one location. So, you know, you balance that along with the fact that we can't be bleeding out of the general fund.
No, well,
For this.
and Fire's regard, they have a training building, that's their training facility, and we can't say you can't train there in the fall.
In all fairness, you need 3 days in a row to do that.
And we moved it to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, because when you're looking at your shifts.
Allow to be, or not allow, but to try to help with the weekends.
Exactly.
And Joe needs, obviously, time to
Well, they
clean up.
need time to clean it up too, but
Yes.
Chief is being
We-
very flexible.
And we have coexisted there for a lot of years, but we're not gonna sacrifice one for the other as well, so.
Certainly not
I-
training.
Those are
Yeah,
great, those
absolutely.
are great times.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
Because on Monday, you had the weekend to clean up. Those who are now retired have that whole day to come out and use it.
we
It's
have
perfect.
Friday too.
I think it's
so,
perfect.
So if that's okay, that's what we're gonna post in the newsletter, and that's the information that we'll give out from this point
And
forward.
fall hours carry October 21st through,
The week of Thanksgiving,
Through the week of Thanksgiving, then we'll close. Last year, we only got a handful of trees. We'll cross that bridge when we come there. We wouldn't leave the site open for that. We had created a smaller kind of drop off, but we
typically have routinely done that.
Yeah,
If there has been some catastrophic event, we've.
oh yeah, I mean for
Right.
dropping the
Christmas
Christmas
trees.
Oh,
trees. So
yeah,
last
no.
year we got a handful, 8 to 6, yep. So,
That's
yeah, we'll,
almost like very few now.
it really was, the cost isn't outweighing the
Yeah,
benefit.
that's,
So we'd like to close the week after Thanksgiving, like we normally have them be closed. So with that, we have, as a team, been working very hard to look at another alternative for yard waste. Doing something, bringing it in-house for Plain Township residents only. So I've worked with all of the department heads, really gave the project over to put together to Eric Haynes. And he is gonna go through kind of a yard waste program alternative. No decisions being made tonight. This was, weeks of information gathering. We just wanted to present it to you, so you can take a look at maybe an alternative where it would be a Plain Township only site. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, so I'll just go over these real quick. We only got a few slides. This is just a typical yard waste. That's an aerial satellite view from Google Maps. That's a pretty traditional weekend there. So we broke down some of the costs, and it's difficult to assess the actual cost to the T when you're looking at the duration of time or where you're taking a snapshot. But in generalities, in the 2008 calendar year, it cost us, 2018 calendar year, it cost us approximately $68,327 in hauling fees. In conjunction with that, we had labor and equipment costs from the road department cleanup. When you combine those two numbers together, net was around $93,327. The solid waste grant offset that by the $56,388, which net expense to us then was $36,939, conservatively, very conservatively. This next slide is the 2019. That is to current expenses this year. So our hauling expenses for this year so far incurred expenditures paid out, $46,510. About half of the road department's labor has been exhausted, combined to about $59,000. The joint waste grant so far is only half of the year, so we take the $28,194 away. We will get another receipt or another check from them for the $28,194. But even if we were to receive that today, you can see our net loss would be $2,000, and we're just about to get into the lease fees. So currently, we've exhausted all grant dollars, and we are a couple thousand into the rears. So how do we mitigate? The solution that we've all come up with is try to emulate the same thing that the Jackson Township crew did, which is restricted to the residents only. You also notice at the top, their hours of operation are Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. They open a little later, and they just stay open an extra hour. So in order to do that, we need to add some infrastructure to our current way site. So here you have our current approach. So this is how obviously everybody gets into the yardways. So we currently open that primary gate on the west side of the lot at 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and close it at 6. Currently, we are egressing through the same gate. So they come in on the west gate and they egress on the west gate. The center gate, the east side, will allow egress, and I just don't think people will realize, but there is a pressure sensor on that center gate which will allow them to get out. Both gates have the pressure sensor in case you get locked in. The vehicle will open the gate for you. But you'll see if you watch the surveillance cameras that 99% of the yard waste use ingresses and egresses through that west gate. So in order to facilitate a single point of entry, we would need to somewhat direct traffic to come in through the west gate and then egress out the east or center gate there. Because otherwise, the way we would do this would, if you had somebody, you can't pass two cars through the same gate, and you would have card-carrying members swiping their cards, and you'd have an egress person, so you'd be head-to-head. So you have to egress in a different location than we egress. So we would basically, more or less, just create a loop at the yardway. So you'd enter into the west, you drop your debris, you egress out the center and east side. This is just a little bit of a rendition of some of the thoughts of maybe cleaning up some of the accessibility, make it a little bit easier for our guys to clean up as well. So this is what it would look like. This is a picture of the entrance to the current yardway site at Jackson. Mr. Icino and I went out somewhere around a month ago or so, met with their road department. They gave us a full tour of everything that they've put into place. So this is just a LiftMaster arm tower that would be installed on the west gate where we would enter. As you're approaching, well, there's just one more photo here of a close-up of that arm gate. It does have a sensor to keep the arm from coming back down on a vehicle before it's passed clear. But beside the arm gate, or just in front of it, you would have a card scanner. And those are RF scanners, so you basically swipe your card, then the arm would open, you would enter the yard waste, drop off your yard debris, and egress out the other entrance, where we would also have another lift arm. The lift arms, the reason we would use the lift arms, our current gate opens and closes automatically on a timer. Well, if we just did everything through a pressure sensor, when you pulled up to it, it would open very slowly. It's not a fast running gate. So what that would then allow is people to come in behind a card carrying member that opened it up. I keep getting this allow up there. I don't know what, there's a smart device trying to jump on my TV, it looks like. It should go away. So the other thing that they added, which we already currently have the infrastructure in place, is surveillance at the entrance. So we found that the biggest benefit that we have to not only deter, but then also try to apprehend somebody that's illegal dumping, is to have cameras, but strategically placed where we can get license plate cameras, license plates off the vehicles. If you don't have the means to get the license plate, all you're really doing is getting a make and model possibly. And I've worked with our sheriff's deputies enough to know that that makes it pretty difficult for them to trace somebody down, unless it's a very well-known vehicle in the area or it has some type of commercial marking on the side. It's very difficult for them. So you have to have cameras in place to capture those license plates as they come in and out. That's one of the reasons that we added a speed bump to the entrance of the yard waste, was to slow the traffic that enters in so that we can ensure that we're getting a license plate inbound and outbound. So from the surveillance aspect, this is similar to what the road department has in their office, just current view of our facility, and they do watch it routinely. So they can see our entrance gate. The first top left is the current entrance to the yard waste. You can see the speed bump there. The top right depicts the PTZ, or the pan-tilt zoom camera that functions in the back, and that will sweep the entire back area of the yardway. So it's constantly monitoring for a couple of reasons. One, we can determine if we got any commercial dumpers back there. Two, they can see when the dumpsters have been filled, if they have any empties, if they need to call. So it does provide some benefit to them from an efficiency standpoint. So how much would it cost? Well, we got some good quotes from the Southway Fence Company, and you're looking at about $15,000-ish to put 2 tower arms up. So you'd have one at the entrance, which would be the west gate, and a second one as you egress out on the center gate. So we need 2 arm towers, roughly $15,000 to expend to get those installed. The thing that Jackson did, which I think would probably be the best for us, is they created an online card application. You go on, you sign up for their program. It determines your address based on a matrix what we would use in our CAD system to determine resident versus non-resident. And then you would be able to pay the credit card transaction online. The way they function, and the way we probably would too, would be you'd have to physically come to the township hall to pick up your card. That way we could determine, say from a driver's license, that yes, that is your actual address, and maybe cross-reference it to make sure that it's a township address. The cards themselves are $4 per card. So depending on, if let's say we started with 1,000 cards, we'd have to obviously have the $1,000 expenditure for the cards, the access cards. And then my estimation on just some additional cameras, because the infrastructure is already there, we would want some outbound facing cameras to look away from yardways into the parking lot area, so as to deter from, and then obviously apprehend anybody that dumps outside of the yard waste area because they can't get inside. So we'd be looking at somewhere roughly $25,000 or so to implement those tower arms, little additional surveillance, and the card swipe system. So just some rough math here. If we issued 1,000 cards and we had just knocked round numbers at say $25 per card, and that would be per resident, you would have approximately $25,000 annually that you would bring in or generate in revenues to offset the hauling expenses for each of those cards. Now that first year on the cards, depending on how you break it, you're paying $4 for the cards. So if you buy 1,000 cards, you're only actually netting $21,000 against the hauling operational costs first year. But then their year after, that card would stay as a possession, as we wouldn't have to rebuy it. They would just re-up their subscription. So first year it would cost a little bit more than subsequent. The sweet spot here is actually about $2,000 or 2,000 cards issued. And just for comparison purposes, Lisa had given me some numbers about Jackson. There are about 2,700 cards issued today.
And that's before the big fall comes, so I imagine they're gonna get the easy 3,000.
Yeah. Now 3,000 cards would obviously generate 75,000. It costs a little bit more first year because of the cards, and then year after that it would be roughly 75,000. So the way that breaks out for us, and this is just estimations, there's no way for us to know. If we were to cut our consumption in half, or the amount of debris that is brought into the facility in half, we would need to haul out approximately 325 containers. If we're paying $160 per container, which is the current quote that we have for next year, that brings it to approximately $52,000 annually that it would cost just to haul the debris out. This does not take into account any of the road department's labor on this side, because obviously that would be cut down considerably as well. If you reduce the material by half, you would think that their expenditures would be somewhat reduced, and they're about $25,000 a year.
Yeah,
The
and
road department.
we just said, right now, there's 3 counties that can come to Plain Township and dump. Anybody in those 3 counties can dump. It's a guess. We said, what if we bring it down by half with just Plain Township residents? Could be more, could be less. We don't know because we've never been in that situation.
Yeah, we won't know that number until after the first successful year, if we even opted for this.
So we just estimated because we're trying to estimate those hauling fees.
So this would be our first year. This would be like next year. If we said, let's go ahead and do it, we'd have the site improvement cost of $25,000 to put the arms in, add some surveillance. Our hauling cost, if we cut it in half by debris, would be that same number, the $52,000. So that would bring the net total combined cost to $77,000. we would offset 50,000 of that with the 2,000 cards. If we got 2,000 cards, if we only get 1,000, we shouldn't see the hauling costs at 52,000, okay? I mean, if we only have 1,000 residents coming in, the hauling cost shouldn't be 52,000.
Correct.
We're just assuming
Like
that.
an estimate.
Uh,
But you
so
see the net expense, 27,000, we pay more than that right now.
we are absolutely are paying more than that, significantly more than that currently. So next year, we would obviously still be subsidizing the yard waste significantly. However, coming into the second year, after we've already recuperated our site improvement costs, our hauling costs, again, at half the amount of debris, hopefully at the same rate of 160 haul out per container, we just have the 52,000 for the hauling. We would bring in roughly 50,000 from the 2,000 cards. Again, second year, you get the full price of the card, 25 instead of 21. That would make a net township expense of 2,000. So we're cutting our expenditures down significantly. Again, this does not take into account the road department's labor. However, road department's labor, as Paul and Joe kind of look at it, we're not adding, these are overtime hours that road's using, so the cost to the road department for a 40-hour guy doesn't change. I'm not gonna save you 20,000 hours of labor by reducing it, but he can then use those resources somewhere else. Obviously, if he's not cleaning up yard waste, he could be out having his guys doing other work. So other than that,
So to be clear, the self-investment assumes there's $0 that come from the joint solid waste district, because
Correct.
the joint solid waste district caveat has always been, we have to allow anybody to come in.
Yes.
So realistically, we're looking at the upfront investment, the revenues off the cards.
But even at that,
Yeah.
we're still paying less out of the general fund than
Oh.
if we were with, but yes.
And that's the direction we need to be moving based upon prior conversations we've had with the public on the net impact to the general fund, and why we pursued other funding mechanisms to operate departments and so forth. So the thing we'll have to keep in the back of our mind too, I know Joe talked with some other providers, we could still end up in a predicament potentially where that provider, because right now, what do we say, our current volume is almost 3 times what they already take in annually. But again, what's that?
He's willing to haul at our
Yeah,
current volume.
but again, that could likely come down if we go to Plain Township only, so it may end up only being 2 times. But still, looking at market factors coming in here, which we're gonna deal with what we know we can manage and control. They could come back in another year or two and go, hey, we can't even accept it.
Yeah,
Now-
this may be a short-term solution if the market keeps going that way and people no longer want to come haul it. Either way, even if it's a short-term solution, we're still saving money.
Well, I know as much as this has been Robbie, sometimes it's hard for the public to understand, see, and hear this. I mean, we probably went through easily a dozen different gyrations from buying our own,
Yes.
partnering with other communities.
Yeah, behind the scenes, we've been looking at so many options, and then we
I
finally were.
just think if we sell 100 carts, that's all the material we're gonna get in.
Correct.
You understand? So that's all.
Proportional.
That's true.
It's all
So if we sell
proportional.
500, whether we sell 100, 1,000, it doesn't matter. That's all we're gonna, it's gonna
Right.
be proportional.
That makes
What we
sense.
Yeah,
I think the big thing is, and I'm sure Jackson has the same issues. Hey, I'm the Plain Township resident, and Lisa's over in Jackson. Hey, Scott, can I use your card? We're not gonna be able to,
No.
a legitimate card is a legitimate
well,
card.
what they do is,
But-
they look at how many times that card's been used in a week and in a month, because it's all computerized, and if they
Yeah.
see, wow, this is some crazy usage, that's why we have it all under camera,
Yeah,
and they
camera.
pull it out
When
and
Eric
say,
and I
okay,
went
what's
over
the
there
car,
to
what's
look at
the.
their site,
Good point.
it was drastically cut how much volume they were bringing in, because there was not a twig on the ground in their site that day we went.
And they also have some rules about length and no, that, you know,
Well, you know, we have some
We
rules
kinda
too.
have that
Yes.
now.
People don't follow the rules
Correct.
unless you're down there.
Right.
You could have every sign you want.
yeah. But we're gonna be in a different situation with it on
Right.
camera.
Thanks to the camera, we're catching those guys.
Right, like we caught
We just caught some.
We just
somebody
caught a
with
commercial
a
dump.
Mack truck a couple weeks
So
ago.
essentially, this is a proposal for looking,
These guys did.
this is a proposal for looking into 2020.
Except what we'd wanna do is give you some time to think about it, but we would need to start moving towards it now to get the computer system in place, to get the arms in place, so it's, we don't wanna wait till January and go, hey, we decided.
Yeah, we gotta sign the contract.
Yeah, we wanna sign the contractor into place that is gonna be doing this and.
Good point.
So have you guys ever talked about that footprint down there? I mean, we're not stuck with the footprint that we have. If we're gonna do all this work, and you look at the property that we have, and you see maybe by moving the fence out 20 more feet, if that helps you, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We
now
got-
we're talking.
We got room on the other side that if you wanted to create an egress,
Towards the back. There is room towards the back.
Yeah, we
Well,
talked
we-
about cleaning up the back,
we
and
have-
pushing it back further away
It
from the
wouldn't-
draining.
Be an overnight
No.
no,
fix, you know what I mean?
but if you're
We'd
gonna
have
go to
run
all
some
this work-
equipment, we'd have, you know,
we should be using maximum effectiveness from the footprint.
Well, one of the things the chief and I talked about, you know, this is just a rendition. This is basically our fence line, and obviously the yard waste doesn't look like that right now. But if we pushed it somewhere near there, we could move a lot of the yard waste operation further away from his training complex and reduce the amount of debris that's coming in. So I just simulated some barriers in front of his training compound down there for two reasons. One, so that if he does happen to be training when there's people coming around, that they're less likely to interfere with the training operations. But it also helps to cordon off the traffic. Again, they're gonna have to get used to coming in east or west and egressing east. Won't take them long, a few signs. It'd be hard for us to paint a line like that on our current grindings that we have down there, but maybe at some point chip and seal or asphalt it, and, you know, we could make it a little bit nicer.
Yeah, but right now, east egress would be through the middle gate.
That's correct.
I'm just saying, think about the move, you gotta cut a hole in the fence anyhow,
Put another gate in farther east.
Yeah.
farther over.
You
So that U
You
shape
could,
now
yep.
is spread fence to fence, totally away from where those
You
guys are now.
could, you absolutely
Yeah,
could.
that wouldn't be that bad to do.
No, because
The
that's all.
prior idea was to try to maybe get grass, leaves,
Yeah,
brush, maybe for the hauler to make it a little, for these guys loading, you know, not sure if people would do that, but at least it may help with, you know, if they're loading, 'cause they have a backstop to push against.
That's why we've always left that.
You know, it's left the dirt back there to push against.
There's
So if we're
approximately,
cutting down our volume, do we need
Correct.
a lot more room? That's
Yeah,
another
that's the
question
question.
that we have to look at.
well, I'm looking to accommodate him too.
No, I know, but
So,
we'd still be
yeah,
back
I'm
further
just-
than we currently are.
Absolutely.
So maybe move back first, and then, because you guys had a whole driveway, so you're gonna have some more expense.
There's none, yeah.
Do we have enough electric infrastructure on that pole for the gate?
yes, the chief's asking about adding the arms. So we already have power already right up to those gates. The only thing that we need to do, and that's why I added, you know, a few hundred here and there for electrical, is I'm gonna have to have the road department cut the west entrance just enough so that we can bury a line to get the power from our current gate mechanism over to the arm. Because it needs to be on the same side as the key card. Otherwise, you're trying to block, it would be very difficult. And so by having it, so it's gonna have to be, the entrance one would have to be on the outside of the gate, and it would have to be on the west side of our current asphalt that we just paved. But with these guys, they can cut a 12-inch swath, we can bury the conduit, cover back up, nobody would ever know it was there.
And I do want the board to know I did budget over the amount of what this came up to be for the infrastructure in next year's budget. So that is set aside if the board decides that's the way we want to go. So for now, we just wanted to present it, give you opportunity to ask questions. Ask us questions in the meantime, anything you think of, so that the board can determine
Nice job.
which route to go.
Very nice job.
We are
currently, and I can't explain the phenomenon necessarily, Joe sees it on a regular basis. We have currently, to this date, we have hauled out nearly twice as much debris as we hauled out last year at this time. So when I showed you guys those numbers, I can pretty much guarantee you that we're gonna add another 40,000 in our haul out this year. That's gonna be all on us, because we are out of grant money. We are exhausted with grant money already today. So we got about 40,000 in haul out, and then the expense on top of him, so we could
track
be.
every dumpster and every tractor trailer that we load. So we are way ahead as and we haven't even hit fall, which is our busiest season.
Well, if we've received one, we've received 25 emails that all suggested that residents would be willing to pay
Correct.
for the service.
I'm sure
If
that.
we could not get rid of it.
And I'm sure that most of them, in lieu of closing yard waste, would be happy to come off with $25 a year for the convenience that it offers.
But it will not be open 7 days ever. It
Correct.
will be just like Jackson, which I just noticed,
Yep.
Friday through Monday, because we have to clean up and the guys deserve to train.
Yeah, it would still restrict the residents to only be able to use it as often as what they're using it now. Now, if we do open to 4 days, that does give them, that's a nice benefit.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be carte blanche, 7 days a week, it would be the same 4 days.
Are we asked Dave how the joint solid waste district, I mean, once our funds are exhausted.
They're done, just like
I
last
get-
year.
No,
yeah.
I get it, there's no more funds, but are we able to charge?
No, we are never able to charge. No, we are not. I've asked
So our
that.
options would quite frankly be shut it down once the funds are exhausted,
Which would be now.
or two, subsidize it and continue to reduce the funds out of the
Right.
general fund. Or we can't.
Close it.
Yeah, we could close it.
That just hurts our residents.
That doesn't, yeah,
Right.
that,
I mean, we know where a lot of this is coming from, and I agree 1,000%, we shouldn't be paying for them to do that out of our budget. But then you're hurting our residents at the same time.
And then our residents also, when we make requests for certain financial resources, have to be taking that into consideration, because it's not like we've got the money tree out back that we can continue to shake or plant more until it multiplies, so. Nice work, guys.
Really nice job.
yeah, you guys have already put a lot of thought in this.
And I will also say, I've had to work with the sheriff's office on multiple occasions, when we get an illegal dumper. And they've been phenomenal. Usually they'll call, we just had a situation here a week or so, I was off-site, Lieutenant Carver's dealt with it, we got some feedback today. We have been exercising due diligence in keeping commercial dumpers out of that site.
Yeah, we catch them.
It's difficult to do that because you have to have somebody that is watching, but we've got it set up to where the road department administrative assistant can see what's going on now, obviously during work hours, she can't see what's going on.
She is
She's a
watching.
She does, she keeps a close eye. And then our sheriff's office, obviously, follows up, and then they either pick it up or they receive a citation.
Great, awesome, nice
Thank
job.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
So that is the end of unfinished business.
Okay, so we have nothing in new business, thank you. That takes us to the fiscal officer's report.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Wolf?
Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for a resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in the amount of $477,869.96.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes,
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
yes,
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
I will move on fiscal officer number 3.
I'll second
It's
it.
been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes,
Fiscal officer number 4 is the investment report for the month of July. Our interest for the month was $38,441.54.
That's awesome.
Pretty amazing. I wonder if you added up prior to your tenure, if you added up the last 10 years, if seriously, if we would have even close to that.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Okay.
Fiscal officer number 5 is a request for resolution to authorize a refund as follows for overpayments for EMS services as requested by Ohio Billing.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal officer number 6A and 6B are the bank reconciliations for the months of June and July. If you have any questions, I'll be available after the meeting. Fiscal officer number 7 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And fiscal officer number 8 is a request for a resolution to authorize the Plain Township fiscal officer to request an additional amended certificate of estimated resources from the Stark County Auditor for $94,097 and to appropriate these funds as follows.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes fiscal officer report.
Thanks, Tom. That takes us to the administrator, Ms. Gamble.
Thank you. Just one quick item, which is a letter from the Stark County Board of Trustees in regard to liquor permit objections. We get notified from the Ohio Department of Liquor Control anytime we're dealing with permits. So does the Commissioner's Office. They were also sending us that notification. They're just saying there's no reason for them to also send that. However, they still want to support us if we have an objection. And the deadline to let them know if we have an objection is 10 days prior to the deadline of the Ohio Department of Liquor Control.
Okay,
And that's the end of the administrator's report.
thank you. That takes us to Fire Chief Schellenberger.
Thank you. Item number 1 is our monthly report. And a couple of those pictures there, with the help of the road department and that, the paving, Station 4 is paved, and concrete's all done up there, so it's all finished. And then our Flag the Flag program, we put those, Mr. Steinberg allowed us to put them at the parks and some flyers around, so we're getting some advertisement that way, and it's doing pretty good. We got about 50 people took part, and we're not in the newsletter yet, so.
Wow.
We're hoping to
Good.
get 100 by the Veterans Day.
Yeah, nice. Good job. Okay, any questions? Number 2?
Item number 2, resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to grant the request for tuition reimbursement to Eric Wiedebacher and authorize payment in amount not to exceed $392.50 to be taken from Fund 10A-15.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion. That name should jump out at us and show the worthiness of this type of thing. We just did a promotion, and the person that we just promoted is this newly promoted captain, taking advantage of some additional tuition. So I think it shows it's paying off.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes fire department. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. That takes us to road, Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is the monthly report. I would like to report that our paving program was completed.
That's pretty good.
And
Wow, it's early too, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
we came in under budget.
How many roads we counting on?
17.
Yeah, we had a good year. 17 and a half,
Yeah,
depends.
very good. Wow,
Yeah,
excellent.
prices were up a little bit.
We were still doing it last year this time.
Yeah,
forward to getting that out quicker
Yeah.
when we talked and had that special meeting. It's well worth it. So
That's awesome.
contractor stayed a lot.
Yeah, good. Anything else? Okay, number 2.
Item number 2 is, as you know, had bids for our new storage building. Bids received were from Morton Builders, CCI Construction, Clifford Construction, and Classical Construction is attached with the prices.
I will so move on vote number 2.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Actually, that's not even, it's just informational.
Oh.
So you know who bid and what the price difference was.
Pretty close. The top 3 are pretty close, but the one at the bottom is a lot lower.
We'll express, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Okay, item number 3 is a resolution to award the Plain Township Road Department Storage Building Project to Classical Construction as the lowest responsible bidder with the following price. The bid of $234,680 with a voluntary alternate if needed of $4,325, making the total bid $239,005.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
No.
Our architect, Mr. Capley, was kind enough to come in to answer any questions
You know about this?
that we might have, you guys might have. We called every reference that Classical gave us, and it was kind of embarrassing to even talk to, because they were praised so highly from every entity that I've talked to personally, and I know Mr. Capley did a lot of background checks with them on things too. And they're a smaller company out of Apple Creek, and I think they can do the job, and they'll do a fine job for us, is the way I feel. So, I don't know if Joe has anything he wants to add to that.
No, I think the one that you had suggested, which would be the closest to what our building represents, is the one from Edina,
Right.
where about the same budget, same size, and they, according to Mr. Asino, basically had the highest praise for this group of contractors. So they, what we're looking at, because we prepared the contract for signature, and then basically their first order of business, which I already told them to check on schedule, is their demo crew to come in and take the existing building down, and then after that follow through with the new work. So hopefully we can get the paving equipment and other things that are sitting outside in before the winter.
Nice.
Well, Kenny's out of the references, and they're licensed, they're bonded, they're insured, they're, they've met our spec, they know what the specs are, so the end product's the end.
It is a design build, where they're going to give us their design off our specs, so that's, will come quite soon. And Mr. Williams did go through the security bond and everything was in line, so.
Well, you gotta wonder, I mean, I know when you take a look at those bidders, I mean, Morton historically, and I know this from my prior testimony, they're a pretty premium price for the buildings. I mean, they're highly skilled individuals, you know, but, you know, also there's a combination probably of demand on the schedules. Hey, if we're gonna take this based upon our current workload, we're gonna price it accordingly, you know, to deal with the stress of meeting the demands and so forth. So, you know, no matter how they arrive at those numbers, you know, realistically, you take a look, there's probably about 32 grand that separates classical and then the next two, and maybe it's a combination of how the time to work, you know, given what they're gonna take on, but then, of course, what's your fixed overhead? Morton, you're looking large corporate business A that has certain fixed overhead that they've got to account for. To that versus maybe the smaller organization, so you guys, based upon the research, the referrals, and so forth, I'm comfortable with your recommendation. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the execution of a contract with Classical Construction for the Plain Township Road Department Storage Building.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 5 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the posting of permanent no parking signs in front of 2529 Maxine Avenue Northeast.
This is just a follow-up from what we did before, right?
This is the neighbor
Yeah.
who I kind of had that feeling they were out of town when we did the other one, and she sent me an email and they wanted to, so it's just her property.
Yeah.
So, I haven't had any bad feedback from anybody since we put those other ones up, so.
Okay. Did we move on this? I will move on road number 5.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
One more quick thing, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Joe Capley for all his hard work, and he's talked me off the ledge a few times and taught me a lot, because I can bid asphalt, but I never built a building before, so.
You said you were very good to work with.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's great to work.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
A lot of phone calls
We
and a lot
tried.
of different hours.
The other thing I want to share is that the highway department is very conservative in their requests and their needs. So everything that he was doing there, in my opinion, was very frugal. And there were times I said, do you really want to do that? Yeah, we're just going with the basics, so that's fine. So, good for somebody using our dollars fiscally, fit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job, Joe.
Thanks.
You too, good.
Yeah, Joe and Joe, just a couple regular Joes. Thanks, that takes us to zoning. Mr. Ferrara.
Thank you, sir. The first item on the agenda is the monthly report.
Anything significant?
No, it's,
All right, number 2.
item number 2 is a resolution to declare items A and B as nuisance abatements.
I will move on zoning 2A and B.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
That's it.
That's
you,
all
Tom.
for-
Thank you. All right, that takes us to parks. Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is the monthly report. Pretty standard July month for us.
Straight lines, I think.
They do a nice job. That's our Veterans Memorial Hill you're looking at.
I noticed that.
One or two sort of look off a
Yeah.
little bit.
We'll do some training, yeah.
A couple left turns in there.
Yeah.
I think that's been rocked in it.
Yeah.
To be fair, my guys won't let me on Veterans Memorial Hill.
Because they want the line straight.
That's correct.
Okay.
Item number 2 is a resolution to hire Rihanna Schweikert as a concession stand worker at the rate of $10 an hour to be paid from Fund 14A01A pending the pre-screening.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution to hire Madison Smith as a concession stand worker from the same rate, same fund, pending the pre-drug and alcohol screening.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you, that concludes part.
Thank you. Takes us to the Lauderdale.
Oh, I'm sorry, I want to take a minute to thank Joe's crew. We've had some issues in the dog park with some construction and some things that have needed to take place, and some abuse of some of our equipment. His guys came down with a mini excavator and are actually having to do it again tomorrow. So I just want to take a minute and say thank you, because it's minimally invasive and minimal time compared to what we could do with the lack of resources that we have the ability to work with.
It's good work.
I will say though, if the public continues to beat on this equipment,
That is literally what's going on.
we're gonna have another set of cameras. Be my recommendation.
I said something then too about that, if we
I
can.
don't wanna jump to it yet, but
No, you're
it's
right.
not gonna be acceptable. You know, parks levy, no parks levy, to treat that equipment like that, there's no excuse for
No,
it.
there's
So
not.
we catch who it is.
You know, I just thought of something too, and I would agree with that, but those are like hydrants that, they call them a hydrant.
For lack of a better expression, yes, sir.
Because the actual shut-off's in the ground.
Correct.
Do those have to be that tall? You understand what I'm saying?
They're actually at
When
different
when they
heights.
stick out of the ground so far, there's so much leverage that if somebody's, you know, pushing them back and forth, the weak spot is way down there where if
What I
they
will
were
tell you is the
shorter-
one that we're just replacing now is shorter. It's barely 12 inches out of the ground, and we're having the exact same issue with it.
Really?
Yeah.
And the only other thing you could do would be to, like, some kind of pole or post that would be right up against it, but then that creates a problem in the ground where the plumbing is.
Where you have to get to.
Yeah.
It's kind of a dilemma that we have. We can't afford to cap it because we may need that water down there. for
Well,
different
again, it
reasons.
goes back to what Scott just said.
I think we should
You
look
know, there should be no reason why anybody would be
In-house,
destroying it.
who did that trench.
Yeah, it's,
For the electric line on that.
it can be infuriating.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Now that takes us to the law.
Thank you, Trustee Stabler. We have one item on the agenda this evening. It is a annexation petition filed by the city of Canton for what they're calling the Meadow Lake annexation. Almost 56 acres, it's essentially Meadow Lake Golf Course. We did get a heads-up call that I let you guys know about on this one from the annexation director for the city of Canton. And I think we've known about the water issues there for a while. This is motivated, I think, primarily by those water issues and issues the owner's having with the EPA, so.
And they won't give them water without annexation, so.
I think it's just fair for the record to reflect, I mean, the long history, I mean, the bars actually were behind the championing of trying to incorporate the township in the city via ballot measure to help address this water issue. Our residents resoundingly rejected that by 97, not quite 98% no vote to yes vote. But then you fast forward, the township has tried to work, as vocal as I've been historically, and I've probably been crucified for it to a certain degree, being vocal on the annexations. This isn't any more palatable, but the reality is, I mean, I want our residents to know that we don't want to lose 55, 56 acres here, and we didn't just say, okay, hey, it is what it is. We actually worked with the state legislature, because we've got emails, you know, Mr. Barr even inquiring, going, hey, where's it stand? I think it started back probably October of last year, all the way up through May of this year. There was legislation that was being discussed through committee, and I'm not sure if it got the full vote, but there was language that was proposed that if water entities in this situation, Kansas City one, if they were to receive certain funds through the state, that water could not be utilized as a means for forcing annexation. The principle of that legislation, when it was proposed, was based upon the theory that, you know, all the folks within townships, villages, the whole 9 yards, they're paying taxes, and money that goes down to Columbus, and then Columbus, through their whole budgeting process, goes, okay, money goes into all these different silos, and the fundamental principle was, you know, if we in the township are sending our dollars down there, and they are getting directed into the, you know, municipal water source, shouldn't be used as a tool against us that we're already contributing toward. Unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere. You know, not being an EPA expert, I'm not even gonna try to attempt to tackle, you know, what the bars were dealing with the EPA outside of the well water was determined that it wasn't sufficient, it was more surface water based, and that's really what drove this. And to the point of Canton's more recent, you know, updates, they did reach out to us about a year ago. I know Sam Slyman called me directly and said, hey, this is being explored, this is being discussed, just giving you a courtesy heads up so that this isn't, you know, by any pitch of the imagination, something out of right field. It's just one of those, this sucks. But we've done what we can to try to help shepherd it through things that are outside of our power with the folks that have the power. And unfortunately, I think it's a combination of probably lobbying and the whole 9 yards. We've pushed it knowingly as far as we can as a team. So, I mean, to make the token gesture statement of voting no against it doesn't do us no good. It just frustrates people. But I think the record needs to reflect that, you know, we're not in favor of it, but circumstances dictate.
Well said. Well said. I would agree with that. Well said. Anything else? Okay. Official action. So that takes us to communications.
Thank you. We have one item under communications. It's a letter from Chloe Ingold. She sent it to the board, and she's a member of the Twitchers Rabbit and Cabby 4-H Club. And she's going to be showing at the Stark County Fairgrounds this year, and she has sent you an invitation to come down to the rabbit barn and say hello to her. She has 2 rabbits she's showing. One is a Holland Lop and a Mini Rex. She's won some awards in the past. She says she's working really hard this year, and she just is excited for you getting her letter, and she is truly hoping, she said, that you visit her at the Bunny Barn. So, Chloe Ingold.
I'll give her kudos, because I showed the 4-H, and ironically, I showed rabbits for my first year until my mother and father found out it was a scam that I didn't need to be out there all week to show rabbits. I had been showing them beforehand, so I made the transition real quick into showing steers where I legitimately had to be out there. And I mean, as small as they are, they definitely require a lot of work and I mean, the fact that these kids are challenged to think, develop a project, you're invested, you get the discipline, but then even the discipline of this letter and trying to search for potential buyers and so forth. I mean, to, you know, be that young in this type of initiative, I commend her.
Well, I called her and said that the 3 of you would come out and you would buy that Holland Lop, and we'd keep it at the office as an office pet. No. Just kidding.
Well, that may be one of the cutest letters we have.
Isn't that the sweetest letter? I actually am gonna be going out at the fair. I'm gonna stop by and say hello. We got
wish her
the
the best
letter.
of luck.
Yeah, how sweet is that?
That's awesome.
That is amazing.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
11 years old.
11 years
That's
old.
good. Very nice. That made my evening.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of communications.
Thank you. We do have concerns of trustee. Trustee
Actually, you got public speaks first.
Oh,
We're waiting very patiently.
yes, so.
I apologize for keeping this meeting any longer.
Oh, no. That's quite all right. That's what it's here for. Please state your name and address to the fiscal officer.
So my name is Troy Rhodes. I'm with Ohio Edison, and I live at 539 Greenmont, Canfield, Ohio, 44406. And I just wanted to address the board. I'm your external regional affairs for Ohio Edison. I know there's not a lot of Ohio Edison employees in the service territory, but still, I'm that person. If you have any questions, concerns regarding, or that the residents bring to you, I'd be that person.
Yeah,
I
thank
have
you.
business cards here,
Good.
I can give
Yes.
you those.
That would be great.
I take always good news, so you can always respond to that.
Yeah.
But truly, from forestry issues to line down to storm restoration,
Okay.
occasionally, every once in a while, we might be driving some of our transmission work or vegetation management work through the property or the township as far as trucks, any issues that you might have with those trucks or anything like that, I'd be that point person for you. Other services that we provide out there that I could help is with the fire chief, first responder type literature. If you're, I know a lot of conversation tonight was regarding training. We have all types of literature that can go along with that. As a matter of fact, I'm working right now with Hartville and their fire department. At the end of September, we're going to put on a training. Their training department called and asked for literature, and I said, hey, if you have enough people out there, we can actually bring a trainer out there, talk to the people, and also bring a demonstration on out there. So I open that up to the floor too, if you have any questions regarding that, or you need something like that in the road. So I just wanted to introduce myself.
Oh, no, thank you for
I see
coming.
you guys every once in a while at the Stark Township Association, but that's who I am. So after the meeting, I'll get cards to everybody. And I also have to commend your website. It's awesome. For me to come in or to meet a township that's got all the information, everything there, that's pretty impressive for the
Thank you.
website that you guys have there, which leads me into another area. When I send notices out to you, or if there's, for those few customers that you do have, if they have questions on how to report stuff or anything like that, I could send you links
That'd be
that
great.
we can go right to you. So I can direct that to you,
Yeah,
Lisa?
myself, that would be
Okay.
great.
So I just wanted to introduce myself. Nice meeting. Seems like every time I come to Stark, there's an agenda, and I'm here for an hour and a half. To some meeting whatsoever. I was over at Knox Township last week. The meeting lasted about 15 minutes, and I took up 7 of it, because they had a tree issue. So anyway, thank you very much. for your
Oh, thank
time.
you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to address the board? Okay, now we will move on to concerns of trustees. Trustee Haas.
My topic, specifically the railroad crossing, I think as we all know, for over a year at least, the railroad crossings were brought up as a concern. So now Senator Kurt Scheuring, formerly House Representative Scheuring, and I had drove around, checked out all the railroad crossings within the township essentially, based upon some complaints. We had arrived at a determination that the railroad crossing on Schneider, just east of Central Station, west of Oakwood, was a concern given the approach. And then the one over on 55th, which is technically the city of Canton, Joe's working with Dan Maglin over there. Wheeling Lake Erie, after multiple attempts through Kurt Scheuring and myself, we finally got a call, was it about a week ago? Maybe just a little over a week ago.
A little over a weekend.
Gentleman from Mr. Parsons' staff, Casey O'Connor, said, hey, we've got approximately 300 plus railroad crossings in northeast Ohio we deal with. On a good year, we probably get to approximately 15 of those and being able to repair them. So in my head, I'm like, okay, there's a 20-year cycle. So where's this going? I do have to say, Mr. O'Connor was very pleasant to talk to, essentially expressed that if the township is willing to collaborate and work with them in some capacity, they can make the crossing crossing repairs / replacement in this situation specific to Schneider a priority. So looking at the first or second week in October, Joe's working through all the logistics with them.
October 7th is the date that's targeted right now.
This is not just a taking up the approaches and putting down new asphalt aprons, which is, I'm sure some of you can remember, we got our hands slapped years and years ago for trying to take take care of that, provide, you know, to the level our residents expect. And, you know, ours are bad by our standards compared to a lot of other communities, not necessarily too bad of an issue. So Wheeling Lake Erie was looking for, okay, whether we're able to provide labor, whether we do cost sharing, whether, you know, it was really open for some negotiation, but they could make it a priority to get that totally done right. Well, in conversation with Joe that Casey had, hey, we prefer to do just a complete rebuild of those tracks, because I think if you watch as you go down the tracks, they've recently replaced a number of the railroad ties. Well, part of the ties and stuff that are under that rail at that crossing, it all needs redone. So they're looking to take down those approaches, tear those up, replace those intersections. So I just want to know, let the public know that even though it took us some time, the folks from Wheeling Lake Erie were very helpful through a collaborative partnership here to get that taken care of. And really kudos, Joe, for running with it with me. I know we had some, the board had some broad, you know, lateral area to work with here, but we're going to be able to get that well, not fixed, totally rebuilt. And given the 55th was our second worst, which is right there by Javasi, it's a whole township, city, close proximity. Joe reached out to Dan Maglin, working to push them on that, because while they're in the area.
Follow up with orders with that one if possible.
Yeah. So, after.
Well, we also cured a lot of things, Scott, by your conversations with, you know, through Kurt and Sherry and everybody. We are now going to be able to do the patching and the paving up to, with a phone call to Casey from here on out.
Which, the historical component to that, as you well know, we used to do that anyhow.
Right.
We always did that,
They
and
were
if for
already
some
off jail
reason,
when we were
they
paying.
decided that that's federal right of way, and you can't touch it, and we'll get to it when we get to it, so.
$500 an hour,
So,
watch us.
we are right now where we wanted to be 10 years ago, and your work, working with Kurt, and, you know, the conversations back and forth there, the communications, now we're collaborating. That's what we set out to do in the first place. We didn't want them just to fix it, we were willing to collaborate. It just took us forever to get to that point.
Just by meeting with this Casey O'Connor and talking to him on the phone a few times, I think we got the right person to.
Sure, now, and
He's just
I think once they see.
Wants to work with us, you know what I mean?
And
He
vice
wants-
versa.
Going forward. he
Yes.
wants to work with us.
So, your work,
Yeah, 'cause we
Kurt
got
Sherring's work.
got other crossings that could go bad next year, you know
exactly.
what I mean? It's not just.
So-
those two.
you were a bulldog
I was
on
gonna
this.
say trustee Hawes
Yes,
was
he
very
was.
persistent, he didn't lay up on it, and now look what happened. You stayed on that, you didn't give up, man, that's awesome. You
Yep.
stayed on. Now we're gonna
A
work,
lot of emails and texts from Scott.
but it worked. Good job, trustee.
Yes.
My mic's
Very good.
Anything else? All right, that takes us to the approval. I will move on the approval of the minutes for August 13th.
So moved. For second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
You have a need for an executive session. Be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 7:53 PM from this regular meeting of August 27th, as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of compensation of a public employee or official. That would be 1F.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino? Yes. Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.